stream here. Broadcasting is always, yep, that would be my volume. Hello, Dan, Stephanie. Great to have you guys on with us this morning. We're going to be talking about a whole lot of stuff. Of course, now that it's 2019, we have the legislative session, the local legislative session, I guess, here in the state of Arkansas. So we will be covering that. That is due to start on the 14th of January. And so you're going to want to stay tuned in to everything we have to say about that, because we'll be giving you information you won't be getting at other news sources, at least, the statewide sources. And so we're going to be talking with Mr. Tim Loggins today on the program with the Patriots VEX 746 about what is it that we really should be looking at in terms of accomplishments, of things that you could accomplish when it comes to your gun rights, if you will. There's been one story in particular in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette about some people and what their attempts are to, I don't know, enhance your gun rights here in Arkansas. Let's talk about what that really means, and let's talk about where the law is now. What's a reasonable goal? We're going to talk to Tim Loggins about that, and I've been talking to him about that a little bit during the break, just via text message, so it'll be good to get his thoughts on that. And then let's see, we're going to be talking at the top of the next hour, I guess at 7:05, Maria Espinoza will be back on. Now, I wanted to have her on because at this point, every time we have her on, sometimes she's scheduled and there's just a grisly, terrible crime, murder that's been committed by an illegal alien. But it happened again. It happens all the time. And it's something that if we had better immigration enforcement, if we had a border wall, for example, the reason that the government has been shut down, you can with certainty say if this illegal immigrant or alien wasn't here, we would have an officer who would not have been murdered. So we're talking about preventable deaths. And, of course, Maria Espinoza is with the National Remembrance Project, and their sole purpose is to remember those who have been murdered by illegal aliens. So we'll talk to her about that, as well as, the government has been shut down. Now, Joe, I think we talked about how, what the record is. The record for the government shutdown, was it like 21 days or something? I think Trump's going to go for the record. But they're supposed to be meeting later today at the White House. Homeland Security has a presentation, and at this presentation, they're going to be talking about border security. The Democrats are invited, but it doesn't really seem like they want to negotiate at all. The show starts in 10 seconds.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. This is our first broadcast, first live broadcast in the year 2019. So happy New Year to everybody out there. Hope you had a great time celebrating, bringing in the new year. How many of you have given your New Year's resolutions publicly I don't really do New Year's resolutions very often. I mean, I don't know. Can't remember the last time I did one. Can't remember the last time I did one successfully. I'll tell you that much. But everybody wants to do these New Year's resolutions, and I was just reading a post from a friend on Facebook who said his New Year's resolution is to actually post more photos and stuff of his family on Facebook, which is very interesting. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. If you want to contribute to the conversation, 870-275-9799. You can call or text that number. Just told the online audience during the little pre-show that we were broadcasting up at conduitnews.com and Facebook, as well as YouTube, that we're going to be talking to Mr. Tim Loggins today about your gun rights, coming up at 6:33 this morning. Then at 7:05, Maria Espinoza will be back on from the Remembrance Project, because once again we do have another illegal alien who has murdered an American citizen, this time a police officer. Matter of fact, the latest on that I saw yesterday that made the cut here would be that ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, is saying that they had no contact with the illegal alien accused of killing the California cop before the murder. The suspect who's been arrested, Gustavo Perez Arriga, December 26th. Perez Arriga, who was in the country illegally, had previous arrests, was taken into custody Friday on suspicion of killing Newman police officer Ronald Singh, who was a 33-year-old husband and father of a 5-month-old baby boy. And that happened the day after Christmas. Unbelievable. We'll be talking to her about that. Now, I've got a few stories here that while I was on a pretty lengthy vacation, on the 21st of December, was that the Friday before Christmas? That was the last broadcast that I've done until today. So there's several stories out there that I've missed. Some of them kind of keep coming in. And so I'm going to get to those a little bit later. I'm going to give you kind of the main story, though, for the day right now. So we have a new Congress coming in. We also have people who are exiting. For example, in the Senate, in the United States Senate, some of President Donald Trump's biggest critics are on their way out. You have Senator Jeff Snowflake of Arizona, who decided he wasn't going to run again. And so he's gone. Then you have Senator Bob Corker, who was a central Republican figure in negotiating with the Obama administration when it came to the Iran deal that yada, yada, yada led to pallets of cash being delivered to the Iranian regime overnight, on a secret flight. Bob Corker, one of the president's biggest critics, on his way out, right? Being replaced by a reliable conservative senator-elect, Marsha Blackburn. You do have the Republican majority in the Senate increasing, as sadly we also have Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. And we're in the midst of a government shutdown. So we're in the midst of this government shutdown. We're in the midst of President Trump trying to negotiate. By the way, he gave the Democrats everything they wanted last year when he said he would take care of the DACA situation. He would provide a pathway to citizenship, to my dismay, as long as he got his wall. And the Democrat Party said no. Number one, because they don't want Trump to actually fix the problem. And the reason for that is, number two, they would rather the DACA kids, or now adults, they would rather this group remain victims so that they can use the victims to gain and maintain political power, I wish the DACA kids would I wish the DACA people would realize this. Maybe some of them have. Maybe there's somebody out there right now listening to the program that realizes that when Donald Trump disappointed those of his base by, providing this pathway to citizenship for those who have broken our laws, right? He just wants the border wall to make sure we don't have more people that come here, but we'll fix the problem, or quote, fix the problem now. And the Democrats said, no, thank you, no deal. That's incredible. And I want you to understand something. That's why we are here. That's why we're in the midst of a government shutdown. Because at some point, you have to do something to make people want to solve the problem. And with the press and the Democrats that believe that their very existence, their very being must be legitimized and affirmed by a government that is not partially shut down, but that is fully open and giving them everything, and their identity is the government. This eventually is going, as long as Trump holds to his cards here, this eventually is going to force them to the negotiating table. So with all of this happening, and again, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker being basically, I don't know if they were, they just decided they didn't want to be in Washington, D.C. anymore for whatever reason. Maybe they'll get a better job lobbying or something like that. In the midst of all this, we have another senator, Senator-elect Mitt Romney, going to be sworn in tomorrow. And Mitt Romney decides to throw his hat in with the globalists and write an attack piece against President Trump in the Washington Post, the president's favorite publication, and essentially is saying that Trump is not a man of character. Mitt Romney, I read it this morning. It was the first thing I read this morning was Mitt Romney, and him basically slamming the president. Mitt Romney slams Trump's character in Washington Post op-ed. Hey, can you go, Joe, real quick, go to the front page of Breitbart. That I had that pulled up because that's pretty interesting. If you'll go to the front page, yeah, these are their headlines on the op-ed by Mitt Romney. The return of sore loser Mitt. Bitter Romney snipes at Trump in Washington Post. Panders to globalists, establishment. Trump's words, listen to this, quote, have caused dismay around the world. Trump's words have caused dismay around the world. This is, at one point in the op-ed, Mitt Romney talks about how our European allies are in the midst of political upheaval. And I think I'm assuming he's referring to the yellow vests. And that's not a bad thing. I guess, obviously, you don't condone violence. You don't condone the political violence. I know there's been people, not only arrested but killed in the yellow vest, situation. But, it's certainly the whole yellow vest situation in France. What the mainstream media won't tell you is that these people are really upset. It's more than just about taxes. It's about Emmanuel Macron being more loyal to some global order than he is his own citizens. That's what it's really about. So here we go. The Trump presidency made a deep descent in December. That's the first line. That's how he opened his op-ed on the president, that in December, President Trump's presidency made a deep descent in the month of December. Now, why? Well, mainly because you have Mattis who left, and you had President Trump announcing that he's going to pull out of Syria. And that's the real reason. Everybody's so upset. Everybody who's in the establishment so upset about the decision to pull out of Syria. Now, one of the things we didn't really get to talk about, because I've been gone for so long, is the fact that the mainstream media, you think you couldn't get any more hypocritical in their coverage of the president throughout the entire year. And then at the last minute, they go and they do something like this and they surprise you. And now the liberal mainstream media that supposedly for a long time is the most, is anti-war, we don't want all these conflicts, all of a sudden are just complete hawks and want us to stay in Syria, want our troops to stay in Syria, where for a long time they have stuck to the populist opinion, which is Americans don't want to fight wars unless we have clear objectives and we know what we're there for. We certainly don't want to fight proxy wars, and that's what Syria was. And all of a sudden, the press, you have some people who literally were just turning this 180 degrees. You could go look at what they wrote last year versus look at what they wrote now, and they've completely changed, all because it's President Trump who's done it. And now we have what looks to be, I guess, another foe. You're basically getting rid of Jeff Flake. You're getting rid of Jeff Flake and Bob Corker. But apparently you're going to have Mitt Romney, who's going to virtue signal and talk with his eyes closed to the rest of the country for the next 6 years. So get ready for that, America. Telephone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you would like to call or text us this morning. Want to appreciate the online audience that's back with us. Hello, Dennis. And we really appreciate you listening this morning. Amy. Let's see. Amy writing on Facebook, the fact that Mitt Romney has thrown his hat in the ring with the globalists brings his character into question. That's Amy's opinion. She's writing this over at facebook.com/Conduit News, so you can check that out as well. Let's see here. We also have this story. Senator Tom Cotton, Arkansas's own Senator Tom Cotton. I saw this piece, and I didn't know anything about this until yesterday. Neil Monroe over at Breitbart writes that Senator Tom Cotton successfully blocked House Speaker Paul Ryan from outsourcing 5,000 white-collar jobs to Irish graduates each year, according to multiple sources. The story goes on. Cotton blocked the outsourcing bill by putting a last-minute legislative hold on the proposal, ensuring it could get through the Senate's lame duck session. The move also denied a political victory to Democrat Senator Chuck Schumer, who had pushed for the outsourcing bill. Schumer and other Democrats were expected to claim GOP approval of the Irish giveaway, reveals racist motives for apparent GOP opposition to much larger giveaways to people from Africa, South America, India, or China. Goes on, the Arkansas senator's actions also prevented a political headache for many GOP politicians who would have faced a backlash from many American graduates for not opposing Ryan's bill to outsource jobs to Irish graduates by expanding the existing Australian-only E3 visa program. The giveaway bill offered no, reciprocity benefits for young American graduates. Cotton also aided President Donald Trump by preventing Congress from putting a higher Irish bill on his desk just 2 years after Trump promised a higher American policy in his administration. Also, you got to remember that it was also Senator Cotton along with the president. And who was the other senator? Is he from one of the Dakotas or something? It escapes me. But they had their immigration reform plan where they wanted to go towards a merit-based immigration policy, which is very similar to other developed countries. Meaning, when you come here, we would like for you to already have skills that are going to fit in with our economy, where you are, maybe a higher earner, you are an engineer or a doctor or something like that, versus what we have now. And of course, everybody. Not everybody, but, the power brokers, they criticize that bill. They criticize the very idea that Americans, through their representative government, would try to change how we regulate who comes to our own country, interestingly enough. You know, I had an interesting conversation about the idea of President Trump using the military to build the wall. You know, he said this several times. That he will use the military to build the wall one way or the other. And so I thought to myself, and I had a conversation with family over the holidays, what does that look like? What does it look like for President Trump to use the military to build the wall? Well, almost immediately it's going to get challenged in court. And almost immediately it probably could get fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. And I envisioned a world where the Supreme Court, what if the Supreme Court said the President of the United States can't use the military to construct a barrier to keep this country and its people safe? Like, what if that actually happened? Well, I guess my point is like he's the commander-in-chief. If he were to use the military to build the wall, the liberals are going to go crazy. Did you see? That's the one story I haven't covered yet. You know, President Trump visits the troops in the Middle East, and they bring out their MAGA hats, and he starts to sign them, and the media starts to hate on the troops because they're accusing the troops of political activity and all this other stuff. They can't stand the fact that the military loves President Donald Trump and his leadership. They can't stand that. And yet, you know, so I guess my point would be they would lose their minds if he said, all right, now we're sending the military to build the wall. Okay? They'd lose their minds over that. It gets tied up in court. Okay? You're going to have these liberal judges that are going to rule against it, saying the president can't do it. If it goes to the Supreme Court, now listen, I think the Supreme Court would probably rule in Donald Trump's favor. I'm just thinking, what if they didn't rule in his favor? What would that say about the people's power to govern themselves if the guy we elected can't, as the commander-in-chief, use the military to construct a fence along the wall? I think it would mean that we're no longer a country. We're no longer a sovereign nation is what it would mean. We're going to take a break. I'm going to reset. We're going to be talking to Mr. Tim Loggins coming up here at 6:33. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I want to welcome back to the program. We have Congressman Bruce Westerman is with us. Merry Christmas to you, Bruce.
Merry Christmas to you too, Paul. Now, how does a guy follow Johnny Cash singing "I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day" and then talking about the reason for the season and Christ's birth, and then go into politics?
I know, right?
You're setting it up tough for me this morning, Paul.
It is. It is tough, and it really and truly. I'll be honest with you. I've been reading a lot in the book of Ecclesiastes, and when Solomon talks about, it's all his vanity and his grasping at the wind, And I'm just, I really, that's the way I feel about the political environment right now, and apparently nothing's new under the sun. So,
doesn't he finish? Doesn't he finish that by saying, "All is vanity"?
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
What's the best Christmas gift that you received? I will tell you what mine is, Joe. Joe, what's the best Christmas gift that you got? You're wearing it. So what is that? That's a hockey. San Jose Sharks is your favorite hockey team, and so you're wearing a hoodie. It looks good. It looks good. And it's comfortable and warm. Yeah. The best Christmas gift that I received was something that's going to hopefully bring my culinary endeavors to a whole new level. I got what's called a sous vide. And it is, a lot of you out there probably know exactly what I'm talking about, but there's a lot of you that probably don't know, okay? It's very simple. It's just a device that you stick in a pot of water, and it brings the water temperature up to whatever you want it to be. And so then you take whatever it is you're going to cook. Most of the time we're talking about some sort of meat. And you're going to put it in a vacuum-sealed bag. So you're going to have a vacuum sealer, which I already had one of these. And so you put it in the vacuum sealer, and then you'll just drop the meat in the water, and you can let it cook there. Now, here's the thing. This is what's so cool about a sous vide. And I heard about this, for a long time, and really, really excited to do this. It's going to, whatever you set that temperature at, it's not going over or above. So let's say you like a medium rare steak, okay? So you want to cook that 130, 133 degrees, somewhere in there. So you want that medium rare steak. Well, so you put your seasoning on it, whatever you want on it, maybe some aromatics, some herbs and stuff like that, and you put it in the vacuum sealed bag. You put it in there, and so now the steak eventually is going to get to the same temperature as the water that you said, 133 degrees, and it won't go above that. It won't go below that. And so once your steak reaches that 133 degrees, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. It just stays. And what that does is, if you cook it for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or even more, it's making the steak even more tender. The muscle fibers and stuff are starting to break down, but it happens very slowly because, again, it's not going above the temperature that you set it at. So what you end up having is people will take, big roasts, big beef roasts, and cook them for 24 hours in this thing, and they come out and they're just as tender as they can possibly be. Anyway, I'm excited. It's definitely the best present that I got this year. Sorry, other family members that are listening, but the sous vide really is, it's been a treat so far. Back in just a moment with Tim Loggins.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I want to welcome back to the program. We have Congressman Bruce Westerman is with us. Merry Christmas to you, Bruce.
Merry Christmas to you too, Paul. Now, how does a guy follow Johnny Cash singing "I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day" and then talking about the reason for the season and Christ's birth, and then go into politics?
I know, right?
You're setting it up tough for me this morning, Paul.
It is. It is tough, and it really and truly. I'll be honest with you. I've been reading a lot in the book of Ecclesiastes, and when Solomon talks about, it's all his vanity and his grasping at the wind, And I really, that's the way I feel about the political environment right now, and apparently nothing's new under the sun. So, Congress,
doesn't he finish? Doesn't he finish that by saying, "All is vanities except to fear God and obey His commands"?
Yes.
That's how he wraps that up.
You're exactly right. The entire theme of the book, from what I can tell, is life is meaningless, but God gives it meaning. I mean, that seems to be what it is. It's like left by ourselves. I mean, we're just left to toil under the sun, and it's kind of a miserable existence. But God is the one that makes it better and gives us purpose.
That's pretty much the story of life, I believe.
Yeah, it really is.
Story of Christmas and the whole, all wrapped into one.
Yeah, man, that's good. Well, to, I guess, devolve the conversation that right now is certainly more enlightening than it's going to be. What's going on in Washington, D.C.? I know President Trump, did he call Speaker Ryan in the middle of your conference yesterday? Tell us how those events unfolded.
Yeah, so we were having our conference meeting. That's where all the Republicans get together the morning after we fly in for votes. So we were having that meeting, and it's where we kind of lay out the game plan and what's going to happen. And the Senate had passed that continuing resolution without any funding for the wall in it, and that didn't sit very well with our conference. So there was it's supposed to be a 1-hour conference, and in an hour and a half to 2 hours, we were still going strong, debating why this wasn't the right thing to do. And it was about that time that Paul Ryan had to step out and take a call from the president, and then he and Kevin McCarthy went over to the White House, and the next thing you know, we got a bill we got the Senate's bill, and we're amending it to put disaster relief funding for from the coastal states, Florida and Georgia, from the hurricanes, which
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. It is great to be back. First live broadcast, I guess, of new, exciting, fresh content of the 2019 year. And we want to welcome back to the program with the Patriots of Act 746. Mr. Tim Loggins is back with us. Tim, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Happy New Year. Good morning.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Now, we got a lot of people, and you can already feel it, a lot of people are starting to wonder, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen down at the Capitol in Little Rock as they go into session, and they'll start on the 14th, so in, basically less than 2 weeks. And a lot of people are wanting to know, when it comes time to sine die, when it comes time, when April gets here in a couple of months, what will they have done to us? Will it be a good thing? Will it be a bad thing? And we're just going to have to wait and see. But I know that you and the Patriots of Act 746 are certainly watching things on the gun rights front. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, Paul, I guess it would be cautious optimism would be the best way to put it. I'm seeing some things that concern me. Hearing some things that are concerning. We see a lot of talk about expanding our gun rights and new gun legislation. And I did a post on Facebook to our legislators the other day that says, guys, we really don't need any new laws. Let's just be honest about the ones we have. Let's acknowledge the Taft decision. Let's acknowledge our right to carry constitutionally. And any attempt to expand our rights, I'm afraid, is just going to be more manufactured confusion. So we're watching this legislation, and we're going to make sure that we don't lose ground on it.
So there was a piece in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette written back on December the 28th. The headline, Arkansas legislators plan bills to expand rights of gun owners in the state. Now, in this story, John Moritz points out that there are people on the right that believe a 2013 law, otherwise known as Act 746, gives people the right to open carry, without a permit. Now, I thought it was interesting that John Moritz here didn't reference the Taft case at all, didn't reference what the judge said about the reality of Arkansas's gun laws right now.
Well, that's not surprising. Our governor hasn't mentioned it. The state police haven't mentioned it. Our attorney general haven't mentioned it. It seems like no one that enjoys this manufactured confusion wants to mention the Taft case. That's not surprising. It affirms what we've been saying for 5 years. You don't need a permit in Arkansas to carry a weapon. That's just the way the law is. That's what it says.
Okay, so we have to okay, so what really needs to happen? Do you think that the phrase expanding gun rights is kind of that sounds great. It sounds great. I'm like, okay, I'm all for it, expanding gun rights. But what really needs to happen, Tim?
Well, Paul, they say they're going to expand gun rights. One of the examples was they're going to make it where a victim of domestic abuse can bypass a waiting period and immediately start carrying into the permitting system. That's disingenuous. You don't need a permit in Arkansas to carry a weapon. They can carry one immediately. They don't need the government's permission. That's not expanding our rights. That's adding to the confusion. You hear other conversations about how they're going to help us. What they need to do is just get out of the way. The law is very clear. We have made major advances in Arkansas. We need to acknowledge 746. We need to acknowledge that Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. We need our leaders to acknowledge the Taft decision that affirms we're constitutional carry. And quite honestly, any other attempt to so-called expand our rights has the potential for hostile amendments that could jeopardize the rights that we fought so hard for. So I'm calling on our legislatures. I'm calling on our the state police. Acknowledge Taft. Acknowledge that you don't need a permit in Arkansas. That would be what our Kansans need. I'm still answering questions daily about the status. People confused, not knowing the law. It's been the law for 5 years. Let's clarify what we got. Mm-hmm. That's what needs to happen.
And that clarification, to be clear, do you think that clarification needs to happen legislatively, or we just need our leaders to acknowledge what the reality of our gun laws are?
I wouldn't be opposed to a simple recognition of the Taft decision, and whether that's legislatively, the legislature doing it, the governor coming out and acknowledging it, the attorney general issuing a new opinion with regards to Taft. But we don't need new legislation to expand gun rights that we already have. That's the thing, Paul. We don't need to clarify anything any better. We just need to acknowledge what we've got.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, this is the rub here, okay? If we are a constitutional carry state, which we are, which means, the definition of that means that you can carry a firearm, open or concealed, without checking in with the government first, Now, that still means that private businesses can put up no gun signs. If they don't want guns on their property, they still have the right to do that. But that's what a constitutional carry state is. And if you had our leaders that would affirm that, and because it's in the law, and it's been that way, like you said, for 5 years, all of the sudden, then all we need to do is protect that status. We don't need any new gun laws at that point. Is that your position?
Well, Paul, I think we need to start from the premise that, we had 2,000 laws last year that were introduced, and over 1,100 of them were passed. And we start from the premise that, usually when government gets involved, it messes it up. And I hate to say that's just the way it is. So maybe we need to look at repealing some laws. I'm absolutely on board with that. We've got 4 different statutes that deal with gun-free zones in Arkansas, where whether you have a permit or not, you can't carry a weapon. The legislature was quick to make it where we infringed on private property rights last session by telling the property owner that you have to allow a gun on your property whether you want it or not, and I'm against that, by the way.
Yep.
But they never addressed the gun-free zones on taxpayer-funded property. Why can't I carry my weapon into the revenue office? That makes no sense. So let's start from the premise that we've got too many spots that are gun-free zones, and let's look at repealing some of those. We don't need new laws. We need to get rid of some of the ones we got.
Yeah. We're talking with Tim Loggins with the Patriots VEX 746. Tim, this issue, the reason I think we need to be vigilant here, and I know you're vigilant, is because this really all comes down to the money. If you have a situation where people have, been under the impression that they need a permission slip from the government, they need the concealed handgun class, they need to pay for the background check and all that other stuff. If that is what a lot of people have believed in the past, and they're not believing that necessarily now, they don't, because of what the law is. I just think, okay, what amendment is going to be slipped in here or there in an attempt to save the revenue? Because I know one thing about government: they do not want less money. They want at least the same amount of money coming in from the people, if not more. And I think we'll see more of that, but that's a whole nother conversation. So we really do have to watch out here, because I think there may be an attempt to kind of save the Arkansas State Police budget, which I'm all for funding the Arkansas State Police budget, but I'm also for recognizing that we don't need a permit in Arkansas to carry a weapon.
It all comes down, Paul, to believe in liberty or not. States that have constitutional carry, almost all of them still have permitting laws. They still have revenue coming into the state because people want it for reciprocity purposes when they travel. The state police can revamp their training. By the way, their training right now is atrocious. They need to audit it. They need to revamp it. They need to make it defendable training, because training is good. When you leave a training session, you need to be better equipped to defend yourself and use your weapon if need be. And they could revamp their training, revamp their instructors. They could acknowledge the law, and they would still see a revenue stream coming in. I'm supportive of cutting that fee for it, because anytime you cut money to the government, that's a good thing. But be honest about what the law is. Revamp your training, make it good, defendable training, and the revenue stream will be protected through that. That free market, if you do it right. Mm-hmm. But acknowledge what the law is.
Yeah. Well, so that would require, and I've said this before, and I would encourage the Arkansas State Police, in light of what the laws are, I would encourage them to market that concealed handgun carry license as a reciprocity license. I mean, that's the only reason you need it now, so that you can carry in the states that Arkansas touches, the states that, have a reciprocity agreement. And that's what you market it as. And people are still going to, like you just said, with the free market, they're still going to want to keep that license.
Now, as long as we maintain the truth that no permits needed, that's really where we need to start at. Look here, guys, we acknowledge the Constitution. We acknowledge the law in Arkansas. You don't need a permit in Arkansas. But, hey, we've got a service here that we're willing to provide so you can travel out of state. And also, we're going to provide you some good training with some good instructors, and we're monitoring these instructors. There's some things they could do to make it a good thing for the citizens. Not that I ever want citizens to think they need a permit, but you know what? Training's good, and defensible training is good, and market it for what it is. And people will still purchase that so they can travel out of state if it's affordable. Right now, it's more than twice as expensive as other alternatives like the Arizona permit. Reduce the fee, be honest about it, acknowledge the law. And, that has implications to other things as well. If Arkansas would acknowledge, the Attorney General and State Police would acknowledge that with constitutional carry, citizens of Arkansas could then carry in Oklahoma without a permit.
Yeah.
But they've got to acknowledge it.
Yeah. Man. Okay, so let's talk about... Do we have legislators who are confused on what the law is at this point? Do we buy that, or is there manufactured confusion going on? What are your thoughts on that, Tim?
Well, I had the honor of testifying to a joint judiciary hearing back in October, and I got to announce the TAP decision. The legislators are not confused about what the law is. You have some that aren't in favor of what the law is, and then they try to mask that by claiming to be Second Amendment proponents, and they're going to help us out by expanding our rights. And that's manufactured confusion. And then we have good legislators that are saying, you're right, Tim, this is what the law is, and they know what the law is. And so let's start from the premise that we don't need to ask permission. Here's what the law is. We're constitutional carry. And let's go from there. Let's start from that premise that hey, we need to safeguard our rights. We don't need to expand them. We've already got them.
Well, the reason I asked that is because earlier in the interview, you mentioned that the idea is being floated to reduce the wait time for a woman who's the victim of domestic violence. Well, okay, that's not even necessary. I mean, talk about too many laws. I mean, talk about unnecessary laws. So, I guess my question is, if that just seems like somebody's confused, or or somebody making something deliberately confusing.
I think it's a case of them struggling for relevance in order to keep the position that they hold, and some of them legitimately think that the permit is a good thing, that asking permission is what we need. I think they're wrong. Let's have that debate. Instead of trying to mask it with confusion by, we'll lower the fee or we'll stop the waiting. What they're really doing is trying to struggle for relevance and still try to say that they're supporters of the Second Amendment. They're supporters of our rights in Arkansas. And that's an unnecessary conversation. We're having the wrong conversation, Paul. We don't need a permit in Arkansas. That's the conversation. That's the starting point.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. I think everybody is going to be watching. I know the Patriots of X746 are going to be watching everything that happens down there with the gun rights. And, folks, we're going to report what's going on down there as well. So hopefully, hopefully when they get out of there sometime in April, Tim, hopefully we'll still have the same rights that we do now. Hopefully they're not going to undo any of the great work that, the great freedom that Act 746 has given the people.
Well, I want to call on our legislators and just tell them, look, guys, one of the most important works to do is not passing a new law. It's resisting the temptation to pass a law. Having the courage to stand up and say, we don't need a new law. Let's look at the unintended consequences. It's a prime example that enhanced carrying that needs to be repealed.
Now, hang on. Stop there, Tim. You're kind of breaking up a little bit. But I want people to hear what you said there. They need to have the patience to resist passing some laws that we don't need. And then you talk about the enhanced carry law that was on the books from last time. You think that needs to go away?
Absolutely, it needs to go away. Paul, they started with the premise that if you pay more money, you get a privilege. My right to carry a weapon is not a privilege to be purchased. They started out with a special status for some citizens. Okay, that needs to go away. And I appreciate the effort to expand where guns can be carried, but they started at it from the wrong premise. We didn't need a new law. We needed to repeal some that we had. They need to resist that temptation. Well, let's pass a law. Well, no, what we need to do is examine the laws we have. Let's see what we can repeal that will protect freedom. The most important work they do is not passing a new law. It's resisting that temptation.
Resisting the temptation to pass new laws. I like it. Tim Loggins with the Patriots of X746. Always great to have you on, sir.
You bet, Paul. Have a good New Year.
All right. Happy New Year to you. Folks, the Patriots of X746, you should search for them on Facebook if you haven't already. Become part of the online sensation today. Ask to become a member of their group, 17,000 Arkansans that are engaged and learning every day what their rights are. It's a great group. Search for them on Facebook, Patriots of Act 746. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. Be back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
That hurricane damage down there was catastrophic, and it's just really not been in the news that much, but lots and lots of damage done down there, and plus the wildfires out in California. So there were a lot of members that didn't want to leave before Christmas without doing something on the disaster relief, and also there was a lot who didn't want to pass up this opportunity to do more for border security. So we ended up putting those amendments on the bill and sending it back to the Senate last night. Some of them had already gone home, so I guess they're traveling back up here today, but the ball's kind of in the Senate's court. And as you know, it takes 60 votes to do anything in the Senate. I think Steve Daines and the president have both been tweeting this morning about how they should do the what they call the nuclear option, but remove the rule that requires 60 votes to have a vote and go ahead and vote on this funding bill. But a lot of drama playing.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Man, isn't that an interesting concept? Resist the temptation to pass laws. That is certainly a it's what it is Milton Friedman, when he said that the maintenance of a free society is a difficult thing to maintain because it requires a self-denied ordinance to put up with temporary evils, temporary ones, on the basis, the subtle, sophisticated understanding that if you step in to try to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere. Summarizing, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's essentially what it means. And so to have our lawmakers, can you imagine if our lawmakers honestly had that mindset, how much better your life would be? Think about that for a second. If they actually had, every one of them genuinely had that mindset, that oftentimes the most dangerous part of the power they have is that the people that have to live under the laws they pass, their lives will be made inadvertently worse because of the problems they're trying to fix. So that we need to have a real pump the brakes mentality. Can you imagine if your lawmakers, if all of our lawmakers, Democrat, Republican, whatever, if they all had that mentality? And I'm going to say this, but how much better your life would be. But most of them don't. I mean, most of them don't have that mentality. That's not the nature. That's just not the nature of government. It's really not the nature of man, really, if you think about it. One of the reasons America was so exceptional, and the concept of American exceptionalism and that sort of thing, the first 100 years of our country's existence, most of our citizens had that attitude. It was a live and let live attitude. It was leave me alone. It was you used to have this, states that would tell the federal government, we don't need your help. Turn around, go home. That doesn't happen anymore. That doesn't ever happen. Of course, things are much, much different now. I get all of that. But one thing is for sure, progressivism, the definition of progressivism is really just meaning government increasing its responsibilities, taking away freedom and replacing freedom from its citizens with dependency on the government to do X, to do whatever. What are we going to think of next? What are we going to think of next? Something else. We create all of these new privileges, these new rights that we demand of government, but at the same time, we can't even secure our borders. And we have people in this country now that believe that securing our borders is bigoted and racist. We have growing amounts of people that virtue signal about how terrible it is that we would, how dare we as a country, because, the idea of a country is apparently a brand new thing. The idea of a border apparently is a brand new thing to some of these people. How we have no compassion because we dare to want to build a wall and secure our border and control who gets to come here and who doesn't. Somehow we have people in this country that are okay with the government of the United States abdicating literally the main thing they're supposed to do, which is to have boundaries that establish where our country is, and when you're in our country, when you're out of our country, and that we get to decide who comes here. Let's get rid of that. Let's completely abdicate our responsibility to keep America safe. And then we'll come up with new rights. Everyone has a right to health care. Everyone is born into this world enslaved to one another, and we determine that by, well, how much is your health care going to cost? Well, I am born into this world obligated to pay for it in some way, and you're born into this world obligated to pay for my health care. It's pretty frustrating. We're going to talk about the border. Coming up, 7:05. We're going to take a quick break. Going to be talking with the National Director of the Remembrance Project. Maria Espinoza is back with us. And unfortunately, once again, there's been another murder, a preventable one, if we had border security, which is why the government is in a partial shutdown right now. We'll talk about that next.
Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Hang out, and we're just here on hold in the house right now, waiting to see what the Senate's reaction.
It's been a wild 48 hours. There was a lot of people that thought President Trump was not going to blink, and then it seemed like he acquiesced, but then that wasn't the case. Now, he essentially said, look, I'm going to veto a bill if it doesn't have adequate funding for border security. And, I've been listening to some of his critics, and, the only thing that I keep hearing, kind of a common theme generally, is, well, President Trump he's not doing things the way you're supposed to do it in this town. And I think, wow, that's got to be kind of refreshing then. It's refreshing to me. It's refreshing to most of the country.
When you get outside the Beltway, I don't know that message is all that bad. But it's the chewing of the fingernails and sweaty brows up here in D.C. right now. It's this is a world all on its own. So I'll be glad to exit the place and hopefully go home for Christmas at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have any plans to return right at the moment. You know, when this is a serious problem. The president is, they're trying to spin it. He's just trying to protect campaign promises, which he is trying to do that. But there's a major security issue on our southern border. There's enough fentanyl came across the border that was seized last year to kill 500 million people. Fentanyl is now the number one killer drug in the U.S., and we seized enough to kill 500 million people. 2 to 3 milligrams is a lethal dose, and you're only talking about a ton and a half or so of fentanyl that would kill that many people, and that's what we seized along the border. There are 10 people with terrorist ties that come across the border that are seized along the border every day. For some reason, those numbers aren't getting out into the mainstream media. But it's a legitimate concern that the president has.
And it's certainly one, like you said, he campaigned on. And what's so wrong with fulfilling a campaign promise when that was your main point and that's why you got elected? I mean, you'd think even the Democrats, I mean, I know their base would revolt, but, you'd think there'd be some sort of consideration of like, well, this is what the majority of the people voted for. I mean, of course, they're going to say, well, it wasn't a popular vote, but, whatever. I mean, this is the way our system works. So,
and if people will look at this for what's really happening, so a lot of it has to do with Nancy Pelosi's speakership. She's trying to fulfill promises so she can get votes to be the speaker in the next Congress, and she wasn't even really in the conversation because we had the votes to pass the bill out of the House that she said we didn't have, and we showed her yesterday we did have the vote. But the original meeting where Schumer went to the White House to meet with Trump, she weaseled her way into that meeting, and then she's the one pressuring Schumer as much as anyone to hold out in the Senate because she's scared that if we pass border security funding, that it's going to cost her speakership in the House. So a lot of this is self-centeredness on Nancy Pelosi's part, trying to protect her own hide and her own political aspirations, and it has to do anything about the country.
Wow. Now, see, I hadn't heard that analysis at all. So you're saying that a lot of this has to do with the fact that Nancy Pelosi's putting pressure on Schumer to not, be more, persuaded to let the Democrats go ahead and vote and give the president what he wants, what he campaigned on, and keep the government open. It's Nancy Pelosi. So you're saying that there's still a chance that there's some people in the Democrat Party that really are not on board with this Nancy Pelosi being speaker again.
Oh yeah, and it's been a lot of that's been published. She's made promises that she'll only serve for 4 years. She's doing everything she can to secure the votes she needs to be the speaker. To my knowledge, unless they've done it and it hasn't been reported, they haven't voted in their caucus yet on who their caucus is nominating for speaker.
Wow.
Which that usually happens the week after election. So she's still playing internal political games, and it'll be interesting to watch how hard the left really pulls the Democratic Party. I mean, the socialists.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome back. Hour number 2 here. Good morning to everybody out there listening. We really do appreciate all that you do. Thank you for helping us build this liberty machine. We are in the midst of a partial government shutdown. This is the first live broadcast of the 2019 year, and so Happy New Year to everybody out there. In the midst of this government shutdown, what is it over? It's over border security. And in the midst of border security, being on the minds of politicians and families, we have yet again another preventable murder where we have a Mexican illegal alien suspected of killing a California police officer a day after Christmas. This man was a husband and a father of a 5-month-old baby boy. And we're going to talk right now with Maria Espinoza. She's back with us. She's the national director of the Remembrance Project, an organization trying to get the word out and making sure we remember those who are murdered by illegal aliens. Maria, welcome back.
Hello, Paul. Thanks so much for having me on, and a Happy New Year. Hopefully this next year will be a lot better than the last.
I wholeheartedly agree, Maria, and it seems like every time I have you on, there's another one of these stories, and I am it's so frustrated. It's like, how many more deaths are we going to see in the headlines before we get serious about border security?
Well, and we have another killing, as you mentioned, Officer Singh there in California, and fortunately his killer was captured, a cold-blooded killer here. They're on the loose, and, I was on the loose for a few days in California, but I'm so glad that the authorities are also prosecuting his brothers who assisted him in escaping and evading authorities for several days. But, Paul, we have another killing that just took place yesterday in Knoxville, Tennessee. The young man, Pierce Kennedy Corcoran, who is also the son of the Knoxville Fire Department's fire chief. He was 22 years old, killed in a head-on collision by an illegal alien, crossed over the line and hit the vehicle head-on. Pierce Kennedy Corcoran passed away. The passenger he had with him, his girlfriend Jade, did survive. But you're right. That's the big question. How many more American lives are these politicians willing to sacrifice for an illegal alien to have a so-called a better life? But as foreigners have left their jobs in their countries, left their families, their children, to come here because they think they can freeload off the American taxpayer.
Yeah, and I was just talking about this in the last hour, how we are creating new responsibilities that we say the government owes us, and at the same time, we are abdicating the chief reason for government, which is to have borders and control who comes here. And I find that to be fascinating, that we have a lot of millennials specifically that think it's somehow heartless, and that we lack compassion when we want to have a wall, we want to stop illegal immigration, and apparently it is not even, we're not even supposed to question the motives of families that are coming here. We're not even supposed to question whether or not they're good parents for dragging some of their children through very, very harsh conditions. Maria.
You're absolutely right, Paul, and if it was an American citizen who put their children in harm's way and neglected their children in the manner that these foreigners have, we would be prosecuted, and we certainly would be separated from them. We would be jailed if that is the punishment, but we would certainly be separated. And look how many Americans who commit crimes who are imprisoned, and they have families. So you cannot apply what they are saying, these millennials, and what the far left liberals are promoting. You cannot apply it to, it doesn't even make sense, and how it's taken on with the millennials it's really sad, but it also shows you how bad the educational system is here and what the propaganda that they're putting into our children's heads, and they are our future. The Department of Education, not to get off too far into the weeds here, but that should be eliminated here in the federal government. It should be left to the state as it was originally intended. We didn't have a Department of Education until 1979, and it's almost $60 billion department. So I think we could do a much more like the walls just to protect our country rather than manipulating and brainwashing our children with the far left propaganda.
Yeah, and that is certainly the mainstream media is doing a great job reinforcing the education that they are getting right now. Again, we're talking with Maria Espinoza, the National Director of the Remembrance Project. So we're in a partial government shutdown. Me and my producer, Joe, Maria, we've got kind of I don't know if it's not really a bet. I think we're both in agreement. We think Donald Trump will go for the record here, the longest government shutdown on record. They're supposed to be meeting today. There's a presentation from Homeland Security. The Democrats are invited. They don't seem interested in negotiating. How far should the president take this to get border security?
Well, we're talking about a national security issue here. So how far should the commander-in-chief go to protect what he is his responsibility? It rests on his shoulders as well. How far will he go? And I think a lot of it will depend on all of your listeners and friends and family and everyone out there, the people with common sense who love this country and understand what's at stake here. Take all of us to rise up and make our voices heard, because that's what's going to take, Paul. Look, we held a majority in the Senate and the House, and we had an America First president, and yet these politicians absolutely refuse to protect our families, the average American citizen. That's what's at stake here. The safety and the ability to be able to run a business in a safe community where we, all live, work, and play. So I think President Trump should, my goodness, I can't speak this morning, should certainly, do what he needs to do and just continue with the government shutdown. Hey, this is a great way to weed out those jobs that we do not need and get rid of some of that debt, right?
Hey, you would hope so. Although I think that they're furloughed. So all the people who are affected by this, I think we end up paying it anyway. But I agree with the sentiment. So let me ask you this: the president has said many times he'll use the military to build the wall. Now, predictably, if he does this, the left is going to have a cow. Especially, it'll be very similar to them really disparaging our troops for pulling out their own MAGA hats and asking the president to sign them over the holidays. I thought that was amazing how they attacked our troops and our service members who were they're just jealous that, the troops and the military support President Trump and his ideology. It seems more so than the leftist ideology. But if he uses the military to build the wall, Maria, it's immediately going to get tied up in court, right?
Well, look, he can declare a national emergency and place the troops there. We have, a 15,000-member caravan, an additional caravan. This will be the third caravan, Paul, coming up from Mexico and Central America. So this is what he's preparing for. So I would love for some of these buses that are coming into our country from Mexico to land and park right outside of Pelosi and Schumer and Paul Ryan and even Mitt Romney now, because it looks like that one of those haters are rising up and nipping at President Trump. Their homes are well protected. Their families are well protected. Their property is well protected because they are politicians. They're not living out here in the communities like the rest of us are. So if they love these foreigners and illegal aliens, because they're not illegals until they cross over, so let's call what they are, these caravanners, why aren't they inviting them into their homes and, shopping next to them and their children sitting next to them in their schoolrooms? So, it's good for the rest of us, but not for them. So President Trump certainly needs to do whatever he can within his power, and every single politician, regardless of your party affiliation, should be for protecting America's children, for protecting America, period. So I say do it what it takes at this point, because it's obvious that he's not going to get the support from even his own party, like, again, Speaker Paul Ryan, who was a complete failure.
Yeah. No, you're right, and I understand what you're saying about Mitt Romney. He wrote an op-ed. We covered this last hour, writing an op-ed criticizing President Trump's character in the Washington Post, of all publications. You just get the feeling you've got Jeff Flake, who's now gone. You've got Bob Corker, who's now gone. And it looks like Mitt Romney is going to be the virtue signaler in chief, and he's going to attempt to...
he'll never make it.
Yeah.
Right. He'll never make it. He doesn't have the courage and the spine that President Donald Trump has. And, I mentioned Speaker Paul Ryan. He ran away from 4 angel mothers, Paul, and wouldn't even listen to their story so that maybe he could make better decisions. So this is what we have here. And then we have these Hollywooders who are, championing and taking up a torch for and fundraising for illegal aliens. What about America's children?
Mm-hmm.
What about Officer Singh's family, his wife, and his 5-year-old son? What about the young man, Corcoran, who was just killed, his family? His father's a fire chief, working hard, trying to make ends meet, raise his family. And here, our government is failing every single American, especially the angel moms, dads, and angel families that we work with at the Remembrance Project.
Well, and one of the criticisms back to Mitt Romney, Senator Mitt Romney now, is that he's really attacking Trump from a globalist perspective. And I have to point out here, Maria, I've done this a couple times now. If you look at the uprisings across the globe from developed nations, the Yellow Vest protests, and others, they all have an immigration problem. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there is a concerted effort to have, there's some agenda, it is a globalist agenda, no question, to have open borders and for countries to lose their sovereignty and not have the ability to control who comes into your country. And so you look across the globe, everybody's having the same problems, and people want to say globalism isn't a real thing.
No, it is real, and in fact, I believe that is also one of the reasons why the Remembrance Project is still around, because, yes, we are a voice for the victims, and we've done more for the families, created a chaplaincy group and crisis intervention group. We're also battling in the courts. We filed 2 amicus briefs, and the 2 top hottest issues, of course, illegal immigration, pushing back on Obama and trying to stop the illegal temporary permanent protection, TPS, that Obama again pushed through. So we're doing that as well. But also, Paul, as we worked with the Remembrance Project starting in 2009, we realized that this wasn't just about sanctuary city policies in Houston, Texas, which is what really why we created the Remembrance Project after learning about these policies, dangerous policies. And now we've learned so much more that this is a global push to ruin our country. You look down to the south, and even in some places in Europe, like you mentioned, in developed nations, they're having the same problem. In 2013, my husband, Tim Lee, and I were sitting in a hearing where Janet Napolitano was going to speak on immigration. There was a young lady to the left of us who was from Germany and to the right from Italy. They were both there to see what America was going to do about their illegal immigration problem. They are having the same thing. It's ruining their countries. And you're right. You mentioned, the Yellow Vest. So take a look at Paris. This is a concerted effort, intentional effort, and very deliberate to ruin our country. And it has, as I learned probably back in 2012 in Houston at a very liberal peace and justice summit, that there are ties to other countries. So international interests, they want to come and take over and ruin America. So this isn't just about our little, what we see out our front door here. This is an intentional effort to ruin our country.
Maria Espinoza, National Director of the Remembrance Project. It's always great to have you on. I hope you have a happy new year, and we'll continue to follow all of this in this partial government shutdown. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, please do. Thanks so much, Paul, and please give our website out because we do want people to come and join us and gather and be a stronger voice and rise up. So
yes.
God bless you, and thank you for a happy new year.
Yes, ma'am. You too. It's the remembranceproject.org, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to make sure I have that right, actually. Is it? Yeah, it's theremembranceproject.org. And we're going to take a break, reset here. Don't go anywhere. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we're going to go over some of the stories I missed, some of the big stories I missed. I wasn't able to talk about while I was on Christmas / New Year's break. A lot of them fell through the cracks, and I've got to talk about some of them, especially that one where the transgender guy. Oh, I'm sorry, where the transgender challenges the store clerk to a fight. Anyway, we'll talk about that and much more. Don't go anywhere.
One step away from the communists that are in the Democratic Party now.
Yeah,
they're going to be pulling them very far to the left.
I think you're right.
There's some good Democrats up here that are they want what's best for the country. I mean, it's just like people want to paint with a broad brush. They're reasonable Democrats, but they're getting more and more marginalized in their party now. And you've got a growing pull to the left that's way out there to the left, almost unrecognizable. They talk about being liberal, but it's a modern sense of liberal. It's not the classic sense of liberalism and freedom.
Yeah,
it's a freedom without responsibility is what they're promoting.
We're talking with Congressman.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues, from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay, so we're coming up on the legislative session. It's going to start on the 14th of this month, and there's going to be a lot of bills proposed. We had a guest on last hour, Tim Loggins. He talked about the 2,000 plus bills that were proposed, the 1,000 or so that were passed into law. One of the biggest things that they're going to be talking about down there is how to most efficiently take money from us to fund the government. It's what we call tax policy. It's one of the main political, it's debated ad nauseum. People talk about how you're going to tax the population pretty much constantly. It never stops. It's the, linchpin in most all political campaigns. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent, whatever, you're going to have some idea, some goal of how you should tax the population, whether it's making things, stay the same, status quo, or changing things, meaning more taxes coming from the people to fund the government or less money coming from the people to fund the government. It's one of the main reasons why we talk about politics as much as we do, because of the economic impact it has on your pocketbook. And so that's what they're going to be doing again down there. It's going to be one of the biggest debates is going to be tax policy. It's going to be what are being called income tax cuts. And if you just stop there, it sounds great. If you just stop at income tax cut, who's going to argue with an income tax cut, right? We all hate the income tax anyway. Who's going to argue with the state income tax cut? It sounds fantastic. However, if you don't stop at the income tax cut and you look and go to conduitnews.com, you can look at what some of the proposals have been so far, the draft legislation. Well, they're talking about a net tax increase on the people. When you look at all of the tax increases that they're going to propose in different areas of the tax code, and you start to scratch your head and you think, really, are they really about to do this? So Conduit News is going to be covering this throughout the session, and unfortunately, so far, some of the ideas that are coming out of there are going to result in a first-year net tax increase of several $1 million. It's $40+ million, I think was the last count that I saw. So I think as conservatives out there, if we don't like some of the ideas that are being proposed, I think it is on us to contact our legislators in good faith and be nice and congenial and tell them, that we are already taxed really to the hilt. We've been taxed way too much already. And so I think what we really need to focus on is relief. I think the people need tax relief here in the state of Arkansas, meaning we need to pay less in taxes. Overall, we need to be giving the government less of our money. We need to be keeping more of it. This year, we should keep more of it than we sent in last year, I think. And I think most Arkansans would agree with that. But what are the ideas being proposed? What's going to pass? I don't know. We're gonna follow it though. Hey, coming up, I'm going to tell you about the stories that I missed while I was gone, and some of them are doozies. Back in a minute. Bruce Westerman. So what are your thoughts? I know it's impossible to predict, but do you think we're going to go towards a government shutdown? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Well, we're headed that way. Fortunately, we've already funded about 75% of the government, which includes the military. If all these shutdowns we've had in the past, the people end up getting paid in the end. But I know that doesn't give some of those government employees a lot of comfort right now. But we're going to have to work out the differences and come up with some kind of a solution at some point. There's $5 billion isn't even the full amount it would take to secure the southern border. It's just money to do work down there, and the administration apparently has found funds from other sources that they can transfer to work in that area, but there will be legal challenges to that.
Yes, there will. Let me ask you about that. Let's say we go to a government shutdown, a partial government shutdown. I personally think if it gets to that point, Trump will try to go for the record longer than like 21 days. That's just my personal feeling on it. But he has said 2 or 3 times now, and it gets reported, and then nobody really talks about it, that one way or the other, he's going to get his wall, and if that means using Department of Defense funds to have the military build the wall, he'll do it. Now, I mean, this is a novel idea, but do you think he can use that authority and have the military go down there and start constructing barriers?
I think there would be legal challenges to that. So that would have to be answered in the courts, but whether he would try it or not, I don't know.
Okay, so we'll have to see. We'll wait and see. I mean, the government. It looks. I mean, I think we will go to a partial government shutdown, and I really think it's. I think it's what the Trump base certainly wants, and I think it's pretty clear at this point. You know, President Trump tried to use the process that was there. He did get it out of the House, proving that Nancy Pelosi was wrong, and now it is on the Senate. And so it'll be interesting to see what the optics are and how everybody responds. Congressman Bruce Westerman, tell me about the Walnut Grove Land Exchange Act.
Yeah, apart from the funding of the rest of the government for the fiscal year, there's been some good things happening here this week. It's just a bill that is in my affects a church congregation in my district. The Walnut Grove Community Church. They've had a church and a cemetery on this ground since the 1800s.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so welcome back to the program. This is, again, the first live broadcast of the year for Conduit News Radio. We have a story, very, very sad. This is one of the stories that kind of fell through the cracks, that when I read it, I was outraged by, but probably not as outraged as actual people who live in Sweden. See, there was a terrible situation where 2 Scandinavian girls were in Morocco, and they were killed, gruesomely murdered by ISIS or ISIS-inspired men. One of the girls was beheaded. And this Zero Hedge article has the headline, "Outrage After Swedish TV Downplays Gruesome ISIS Beheadings and Threatens Prison for Sharing the Video." They were more outraged about the video that was being shared, reminding their viewers that it's illegal to share such a video over there. More outraged by that than they were the actual murder of the Scandinavian girls. The Scandinavian TV here, SVT, saying that the murder, quote, the murders had nothing to do with Islam. Then they warned Swedes that sharing a graphic beheading video of the incident could result in up to 4 years of imprisonment. Man, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's getting to a point where, they literally, it's like, what I saw a meme video. I think it was a video of memes, and one of them, remember, it's that NPC, the NPC, the non-playable character, and how they want you to, there was like a poster or something of somebody who was clearly Islamic and threatening violence, but it actually read, that this person is friend, that these are our friends and that sort of thing. It's like a societal suicide watch is what we're in. I mean, it's unbelievable that we can't recognize threats, call them what they are, and also understand at the same time that, of course, we're not disparaging everyone, but you have to qualify everything because people are so sensitive. These two, one girl was from Norway, the other girl was from Denmark. They were murdered while backpacking in the high Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Both girls were stabbed multiple times. One of them was beheaded. The culprits can be seen pledging allegiance to the Islamic State. The ISIS fanatics gloated about the killing, while images of the killing were posted to the Facebook page of one of the girls' mother. The video was then sent via private message. The clip in which a suspected ISIS terrorist shouts, "It's Allah's will," was also sent to friends of the girl. It has since been revealed that horrific images of the slain tourists have been posted on the Facebook page. Let's see here. So then the TV, their own reporters over there, a Christmas Eve report on the murders, SVT made no mention of the fact that one of the women was beheaded, nor the ISIS link. They called their injuries, quote, knife damage, end quote, yet warned viewers of the legal risks of sharing the video of the incident. Quote, "We have got very good legislation in place called unlawful infringement. This law is aimed at just this kind of case when someone spreads information or images of somebody in a vulnerable position." A subsequent written version of the murderers on SVT's website does mention the link to Islamic terrorism, though, but it didn't make the actual broadcast. Again, more outraged about the idea of sharing the film than the murders themselves and accurately reporting that they were, in fact, Islamists who committed these terrible acts. Unbelievable. I saw that story, and I couldn't believe it. See, this was written back, on the 29th. So I saw that story on break, and what does this say about where Western civilization goes from here? Western civilization is many things, but one of the reasons it's still here is because in the past, when there's something that is affront to Western civilization, the ideas of attempting to base laws on the golden rule, the idea of having critical thought and deriving from that the idea of freedom and being self-sufficient, all those things. Western civilization survives the threats of that because we're able to accurately identify the threats. But if you approach a situation where you can no longer accurately identify what it is we're fighting, what it is we're facing, what the threats are, well, how are we supposed to survive? Just somebody explain that to me. You can't have a wall because you're not compassionate? Well, what do you mean this is a threat to our economic security? By the way, nobody wants to have the economic argument about whether or not we should be letting tons of uneducated or unskilled people into this country without being able to account for them accurately. At the very least, we should be able to figure out the numbers coming over. We can't even do that. It's unbelievable. So wanted to talk about that story. Then we have this story. I saw this yesterday. Couldn't believe it. Well, hang on. Actually, let's hold off on that one. This is from today. For you folks who are wanting some Arkansas statistics, let's see. It looks like Arkansas, according to a health report, we are now 46 in the country. We're up from 48 to 46 as a healthy state. Andy Davis, by the way, has that story there over at Arkansas Online. Okay, so anyway, let's get to the vape shop. All right, this was the biggest story that I missed, I think, just in terms of kind of looking at how the left is just nuts. Man, okay, so there's a vape shop employee who's been fired, and you've seen the video. I'm not playing the video for you here because I can't find a censored version of it. But the guy goes into a vape shop, and he's wearing a Trump shirt. It just says Trump on it. And it's two white guys and a black guy. The black guy is just waiting his turn in line, and he's really not a subject of the video. But then the other two white guys, you got the employee and the guy who's a Trump supporter, and he's saying, "I'm just trying to get this for my wife. This is the vape, whatever this is what she wants." And the guy loses his mind. He drops multiple F-bombs and refuses to serve him. Refuses to sell to him, and goes on this tirade. Says all sorts of stuff. Here's thehill.com. A vape shop in Atlanta, Georgia, has fired an employee after he refused service to a customer wearing a Make America Great Again hat. I thought and a pro-Trump t-shirt. So he did have the hat on. The vape shop, Exhale City, posted about the firing on its Facebook page over the weekend after a video of the encounter garnered hundreds of thousands of views. This was the statement. Tonight we had an employee act improperly toward a customer. Exhale City does not tolerate this kind of behavior from its employees. When we identified the employee at fault, we fired him immediately. We've also spoken to the customer and apologized. We value our clients and treat them with respect and dignity regardless of their political views. Now, what an amazing, maybe Western civilization will survive. Who knows? Maybe we have a chance with a statement like that. The video shows the employee, who XL City has declined to name, yelling at the customer and saying he will not complete his transaction. F your capitalism. So he says, F your capitalism, F your president. He's a racist, stupid piece of excrement. You're a racist, stupid, whatever. Anyway, it's nuts. I'm telling you, the guy starts to throw a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old would, where, your voice just goes ultra high pitched. I didn't even know a grown man could scream that loud. I mean, it's unbelievable. Again, but there's so many cuss words in it, it's impossible. Nobody's really made an attempt to edit it down. So that happened around the 31st of December. At least that's where this report is dated. And this kind of happened on the heels a couple of days before. You had a different incident where a transgender woman, that means a man dressed up like a woman, is threatening to take it outside when a GameStop employee uses the word sir. So this GameStop employee is looking at this guy. Can we show the photo of this man at the top of the thank you, Michael. Can we show the photo? Yeah, okay. So can you blame him for calling him sir here? I mean, I would. This guy, he's wearing pink and everything else, and he's got earrings on and moderately long hair, but it's very, very clear that this is a biological male. And the guy behind the counter calls him sir, and he loses it. He absolutely loses it, and threatens to fight the employee. Exactly. That's exactly right, Joe. That's why I'm sorry. The left is anti-comedy. That's fine, but this is hilarious. This is why it's so funny. It's like how very feminine of this guy who wants to be identified as a woman to go ultra fraternity bro and threaten to beat somebody up and take it outside. It's like the most masculine thing you can do, right? And we're supposed to call him or her when you say something bad and he bows up. He's much bigger than the employee. She's the biological male here, dressed up like a woman. All right, well, can we hear this? Because this one is censored. That one right there. Go ahead and cue that up and play it whenever you're ready. This is from the Daily Caller.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am. You need to settle down and mind your business, okay? Ma'am, once again, ma'am.
I said both of you.
No, you said sir. Once again, it's ma'am.
I actually said both of you guys. It was general.
Right beforehand, you said sir.
Sir?
Mother, take it outside. If you want to call me sir again, I will show you a sir.
I apologize.
Mother.
I apologize.
I need your corporate number because I'm going to call them and talk about how it's misgendered several times in this store. I need your corporate number now. Well, I'm going to ask you for the 5th time to stop calling me a man because quite clearly I am not.
What is that guy, 6'2"? You think he's like 6'2"?
Yes, get it for me now. Get it for me now. I'm not cussing. Ooh! Ooh! You're just going to keep bucking your gums and disrespecting trans people in this store, which I plan on telling the entire LGBTQ community. You're going to lose money over this.
Stop. The LGBTQ.
So why does it matter?
The LGBTQ community, where the B in LGBT now affirms 2 genders. The bisexual, isn't that weird? I thought there was supposed to be like, what is there, like 90-something genders now? Or? There's an unknowable number of genders. Thank you, Joe. An unknowable number of genders. So take it outside. Let's take it outside, bro. You're gonna what? You called me sir? I'm a ma'am. No, not man. No, you call me man. How are we as a society supposed to accommodate and make someone feel like, how are we? At some point, it's too much, right? At some point, you're asking a lot from society when this guy wants to be called a woman, but then does the most masculine thing that you can, which would be challenge someone to a fight over something that's, well, you talking my girlfriend? That's all you look at my girlfriend. You want to go outside? I mean, it's like a hair trigger here.
If you look down at this article just below the video, it says, it's a quote from this person. If you call me a sir again, I will show you an expletive, sir. So is he saying, was she saying that if you call me sir one more time, I'm going to show you a sir? Like, I'm going to show you a dude?
I don't know.
It's like, you have to show me a dude. I'm looking at one.
This was definitely high on the list when I saw this story, and I was like, oh my goodness. I wanted to be on the air so bad. So anyway, tell me what you think about this. You know, I just got through saying that maybe Western civilization has a chance, but now I'm not so sure anymore. Now I'm not so sure. But see, this is one of the reasons why nationally the Democrat Party is losing credibility. When President Donald Trump was talking about jobs and the economy and, you know, trying to protect the middle class, or, you know, have a good economy for everybody, including the middle class, including the wealthy, they were lecturing us. Their side is lecturing us on pronouns and how the LGBT, RSTLNE, would you like to buy a Val community is somehow, they don't have rights. They don't. I was talking to a friend about this over the holidays as well. What do you mean? What are gay rights anymore? Doesn't everybody have the right to live the type of life they want to live at this point? But there's never a stopping point. There's never a point where you say, okay, we can move on now, because it's a totalitarian thought. It's, well, I get the feeling that some people, like this transgender woman who's a biological man, I got the feeling that they don't really, that their goal is to have everybody agree with their life choices. Not just tolerate their life choices, but agree with them. I get the feeling that that's their end game, is they want total agreement. They don't like the idea that there may be somebody that would, you know, as they're raising their kids, they're going to work every day, that there are people raising their kids that would look at this man and not want that future for their children. That idea is, I don't know, what is it, keep them up at night? I don't know, but to me, the end goal is an affirmation to heartily approve, and I don't think you're ever going to get that from the people, and that's why I don't think it ever stops. What they're really looking for, and this also goes for the millennials that can recognize an injustice, but they don't know how to reconcile it. That's why they want to tear down Civil War statues. Is that we have a situation where you're never going to solve disagreements, but I feel like that's their goal. Is we're going to do all this so that we can end human disagreements. Well, you can't do that in a free society. If you have freedom and freedom of thought, you're going to have people that disagree with one another. The question is, where does the government get involved? Well, Thomas Jefferson said, if it picks my pocket or breaks my leg, okay, well, now we have an issue. But, having a biological male dressed up like a woman freak out, that poor GameStop employee, I really feel for him because he used the word sir when looking at, how did he know that? First of all, how are we supposed to know? Maybe that guy was a drag queen, right? Maybe the person wants to be, is perfectly happy being a man, but wants to be. And then what do you say? Do you say sir then? Is that okay? It's all so subjective. I'm sure there are trans people out there that understand it's going to be difficult for the rest of the world. Or maybe the clerk should have said, I'm really sorry, sir. You need to do a better job of looking like a woman if you want me to buy into your. I mean, come on. I need some sort of suspension of disbelief here. I need a little bit more spectacle out of you. If you want me to buy in that you're an actual woman, I'm going to need you to try a little harder because my brain is saying man all day long. Good grief. Maybe should have spent a little bit more time at the L'Oreal kiosk. Maybe just a little bit. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Before the Forest Service was ever established, and a later survey showed that their cemetery was on Forest Service land. So for over 20 years, they've been trying to swap out the land with the Forest Service. It could have been done administratively, but if you've never worked with a federal bureaucracy, it's just one excuse after the other. I mean, you almost expect they're going to tell me something, and then they're going to come back 3 weeks and tell me, or 3 months later and tell me it's going to be another 3 months, and that just drags on forever. So we stepped in and said if the Forest Service won't act, we'll pass a bill that forces them to trade the land. And it's actually 6.3 acres of land adjoining the Forest Service that gets traded for about 3 acres that the church cemetery is on. So the Forest Service comes out with more land.
It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man, you got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good.
Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP parody.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, here we are. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We're winding down the first broadcast of 2019. Happy New Year to everybody out there. First of all, thanks for starting the beginning of your day with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Kind of a recap of the headlines for today. Mitt Romney slams Trump's character in a Washington Post op-ed. So that's right. Corker and Flake are out of the Senate, and Mitt Romney is taking their place and being a cheerleader for globalist policies. Senator Tom Cotton has blocked a jobs giveaway to foreign graduates. Check that out over at Breitbart, how he successfully blocked House Speaker Paul Ryan from outsourcing 5,000 white-collar jobs to Irish graduates, according to multiple sources. Then let's see. We also have the top of the show. We mentioned that with Maria Espinosa and how we have more victims, more American citizens dying because of illegal immigrants, whether it's murder or whether they're, involved in traffic accidents. Anyway, we've got a good show for you lined up tomorrow morning. And so we'll be right back here at 6:05 tomorrow morning. And you can get this broadcast over at conduitnews.com for free. You can get the podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud if you just want to do the audio only, or the video archives. It's up to you. Arkansas, thanks for listening. Be safe.